Hello again, Internet. It is I, StarScream, the ruler of the galaxy. And as I said, I would answer your questions. I only have a few. I assume this is because I'm not as popular as I once was. People have forgotten about StarScream. I don't know why. I've always been here. I've always been ready. I've always been full of answers. So let me go through some questions. I think I can see. I can basically see in this thing. Okay. My first question comes from YouTube. My only question from YouTube, perhaps. I might get another. YouTube, the questioner's name is Sayo Silva. Kind of like Hi-Ho Silver. Is that like the Lone Ranger? Sayo Silva, okay. Question is, what do you think about introducing gray morality in Transformers, having both the Autobots and the Decepticons with pros and cons, good and evil? And he says, I think at the end the Decepticons are just evil. This is good, good question, except that it relies on the old version of the show where there was a gray morality because they didn't know how any of the characters would work anyways. It was all gray. Anyways, I answer this question. I'll try and read my answer. It's better if I read, it's like Iron Man says, I'll stick to the cards. In life, I am all for gray morality, as that is the way most people are. Although, some people are to the extreme of the good and bad, and they tend to cancel each other out. However, the Transformers are bots made by Teletran 1 and the little-known Teletran 2 for the simple military protocol of war by numbers, divided by the optimal and primary mission that includes the needs of people and the Omega or last desperate act of Cybertronian industry. You may have caught on to the Optimus Prime, Omega, Megatron, you might, yeah, whatever. You may as well ask about the gray area between the Insecticons built to consume all materials needed to reproduce versus the Dinobots who are built to eat the Insecticons. They both have a similar focus and a simplicity to them. You might understand that. I can try and read it. Okay, I said, this is why it will take the act of people to finally rid the Earth of all bots. At least that's the way it goes in my storyboards. I might not have mentioned it before, but I have movie storyboards that explain everything that happens in a story of Transformers the way that it should be told, in which they're robots. They're robots from Cybertron, and they have a military protocol. It is divided up because there is two sides to Teletran. There is Teletran 1 and Teletran 2. There is Optimus Prime and there is Megatron. And they're not really good and evil. They're robots. They have robot interests in mind, as human as they've often been portrayed, which is some kind of algorithm designed to mimic human responses. At least that's the way I understand it. You might or might not disagree with me. I don't care. I'm StarScream, ruler of the galaxy. I have no time to care what people agree with me or not. Let me get on to the next question. This question comes from Facebook. Wade Philpot. I could fill a pot. Wade says, why did you actually think that you would be a better leader than Megatron? He's asking me one of these questions everybody wants to know. Why does StarScream have to take over the Decepticons? Why would StarScream think that he can take over the Decepticons? I understand the question. It's not new. Let me try and answer it. And I have written an answer down. I'll try and stick to that answer. My answer is, first of all, there has never been a story from Hasbro's Transformers that was not full of continuity problems and bad storytelling. In the second season, and this is my explanation for why everybody, let me just explain. In the second season of the original show, StarScream had an emotion of jealousy, which is not reproducible by a computer or a robot, and it established that they were living machines at that point in time. In fact, two things happened at that point in time. StarScream had an act of jealousy, wanting what Megatron had. This did the act of making StarScream a living machine, and it also made StarScream everybody's favorite bot. That's one of the causes and effects of making these machine robots more human. And I get to this argument over and over and over again. And it's like people want to think that the Cybertronians are living machines because it's been done so many times before by Hasbro. But I have to argue that Hasbro never had a beginning and an end. They didn't know where they were going. And if they knew where they were going, they would know that robots are not alive. They were built by something that used to live on Cybertron that's now a dead planet. And we don't want the Earth to become a dead planet. At least that's not what would want if you were in the optimal and primary side of thinking, like Optimus Prime. Who cares about human beings as silly, puny Earth creatures? I step on them like insects. I might have gone off the cards here. What did I say? Yes, establishing the StarScream is everybody's favorite bot. That's one thing that was very important there. People still latch on to a story that is terrible. It's a terrible way, and it lacks meaning when there's just this sort of childish banter back and forth. In my storyboards, Megatron merges with StarScream. StarScream doesn't want what Megatron has. They merge and become the same. In fact, Megatron is just this big. He's the size of a P-38 handgun, and he merges with StarScream, and StarScream becomes very important in my second movie. And that's because they're machines. They're not little jealous children who get jealous of each other. I may be the only one who understands this, and I may be the only one who has a story that's about robots. It's not about living, living machines. It doesn't make any sense. It's not Johnny Five, okay? It's robots. Robots from Cybertron. Get it? I may be the only one. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Next question comes from a Chris Pilot. This is funny. I like the word pilot, transforming jet. I like the word pilot, particularly because it reminds me of some lines from Gilbert and Sullivan, where Ruth, the maid of all work, confuses the word pilot with pirate. I have a lengthy stop-motion animation video all about Pirates of Penzance, done with all the greatest toys that you've ever seen. And Starscream is Frederick, the slave of duty, who is bound to be a pirate because Ruth, who was asked to take him off to be a pilot, she was hard of hearing, and so she brought him to a pirate. Anyways, I losing track of of things. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yes. Oh, I'm itchy. The question from Chris Pilot, he says, how did it felt, that's bad grammar, how did it felt get blasted by Galvatron? He's referring to the movie. Everybody likes to refer to the movie. They can't remember the TV show very good because it was very childish. So everybody remembers the movie, when Megatron became Leonard Nimoy and fired a blaster and killed Starscream, because he wasn't a robot, he was a living machine, so you could kill these people, these robot people or whatever. And I'd like to point out that asking a machine how it feels is a rather cute question that I don't know how to answer. You want me to tell you that my diodes would light up and spark if I got blasted? I don't know how to answer that question, but I will tell you this. There is a certain difference that is noticeable. I would point out that in the TV show, laser blasters never had any effect at all on any of the bots. I mean, they were always blasting each other, and nobody ever got hurt. They just bounce off of them. It's as though the Cybertronian blasters were designed not to harm anybody. It's rather silly. However, once you get to the movie, then all of a sudden everybody was getting blasted in 10 seconds and they were all dying. I wanted to also mention there's an opposite here, which is noticeable, and that is that rocks were always quite devastating to the bots, which was opposite in Masters of the Universe, where He-Man was running around, and She-Ra as well. That for some reason rocks were like powder puff balls to He-Man. He would just smash them. You should perhaps talk to my friend King He-Man. He'll explain that to you better, how he smashes rocks and that kind of thing. But of course in Masters, the laser guns, the special beams, the freeze rays, the power beams, they were very, very scary. So there was an opposite there.
Yes, King He-Man say, rocks smash, smash.
Transformers, not so good with rocks. Laser blasters, once the movie comes along, everybody just gets blasted in 10 seconds. Masters of the Universe, different, you know, tend to be. Except they change things when they do movies. They make things weird. They twist the trends that they've already set for themselves. That kind of thing tends to happen. Continuity problems throughout. Transformers is filled with continuity problems. Anyways, I have another question. I'm ranting and I'm itchy and ugh. Okay. Question from Andrew Majowski on Facebook. He says, how does it feel to know that your live action form is a cross between a Doritos chip, a monkey, and a chicken? But when you finally get your gorgeous 1980s robot body, they screw up the type of plane that you turn into, and then to make matters worse, they call you the wrong name. So this is expected. Everybody has on their brain the whole Blitzwing thing. Not too worried about Blitzwing, but I am worried that I'm worried that people will get used to a damaged product. I'm worried that people will think of the Michael Bay Hasbro version of StarScream and they won't remember the original version. It will be lost to them. They won't think it was ever important, that it was always like that, when it wasn't. Anyway, I think I had a written answer here for Andrew. Well, okay, Andrew had two questions. Let me do that. Andrew says, you said you'd be back to avenge yourself upon the Maximals and Predacons at the end of Beast Wars in the episode Possession, but you never heard back from him again. What gives, he says. Yeah, that's continuity problems in television. That's what that is. And my answer was, so often stories on TV are not planned through to the end, or having a true beginning either, like I said before, beginning and an end. In fact, I'll quote Shakespeare. Shakespeare, who was a writer for Francis Bacon, a ghostwriter, or Francis Bacon was a writer and Shakespeare was a producer. That might be the better way to say it. But Shakespeare said that that stories will always end in death or marriage. TV shows typically forgo this, and they end up with these unnecessary cliffhangers without any clarity to when the show will be renewed. So you can have a Beast Wars and it doesn't really add up and make any sense, and StarScream just comes in and says, I will destroy you all, you puny earth creatures, and he hates all the robots too. That's what gives. That's what gives. It's television that doesn't care about a beginning and an end. That's what it is. So I have another question from YouTube. This character, his name is Loins. Loins of the Lord. Guess that depends on who your Lord is. Anyways, he refers to me as Blitzscream. So again, it's the Blitzwing, the Starscream, I get. So he says, Blitzscream, do you think that Psykill would help give you the power to defeat Megatron? So Psykill, I guess, is a deranged GoBot or something. And I would have to say, yes, Psykill has the power to I'm almost doing He-Man again. You should speak to my friend King He-Man. He will tell you who has the power.
You want to know? I will tell you. Cycle has the power!
And he also asks, how's your foot doing? I suppose this is because something happened to my foot at some point in time. I would show you my foot, but I'm not actually wearing the bottoms of the costume with the leg things on them. Maybe in some other episode I'll show you the legs, but I'm not wearing them. And I believe that's all the questions that I have. I hope I wasn't too weird and off tilt and all that. I hope you can understand me and that there's a purpose to all this, that we've learned something, that the television always screws things up, Hasbro always screws things up, and what we need in this world is somebody who has a good story, someone who understands story, someone who has storyboards. I may be losing my voice also. Up here where I am in the prairies, there's a lot of smoke coming in from BC, and so the whole air is just nasty. It's like the apocalypse. It's like the great revealing of the skies opening up and the stargates that Abraham stared into. It's like blood moons with Mars, and it's like the end of the world, and you can barely talk because there's all the smoke in the air. Anyways. I'd like to say I appreciate everyone who bothered to ask me questions. I hope you like my answers. I am StarScream, the ruler of the galaxy, and I'm proud to answer all of your silly, puny Earth questions. You are all beneath me. And perhaps I would like to invite those in the future who would like to ask me more questions that you'd like me to answer and give me more of a focus on this whole thing, but we can do it again. We can do Ask StarScream a question, and I will answer you, Internet. All right, we're done.